Let's go over how to hinge the wrist to start the golf swing. The takeaway is by far the most common place that I see players have issues with the swing, whether it is shoving the hands out and away, rolling this club open and inside, ripping the club low and inside off the start, having no wrist hinge and just keeping the arms locked out. There are many different things that I will see players struggle with. And this is not a video saying you have to get to this one takeaway spot. You'll see many high-level players on the PGA Tour or LPGA Tour, Live Tour, whatever it may be, that get the club into different positions. You'll see some players that get the hands very in, the club face very out. You'll see some that get the club more inside than others, that will get out kind of outside of these normal positions that I'm going to mention. But the difference is there are elite players that are able to manage those positions very well, where most amateur players will get into a position like this, and now the club is inside, it's rolled open, they need to do something to elevate it, so they start making compensations with the elbow, and now that leads to other issues throughout the swing. So again, you will see some different variations from the positions we're going to talk about, but the difference is elite players are pretty good at managing it, amateur players usually are not. So when we are looking at this, the takeaway position that I want you to kind of get used to or get in the ballpark of is going to be when you get the club back to parallel to the ground. So when this club again is level to the ground, just under thigh high here, or waist high, ideally what I would like to see is when you're in this spot is your hands are over your shoelace, your back shoelaces, the club head is very close to being in line with the hands, and the toe of the club is very slightly down. If you get the club head a little more outside and a little more shut, or a little inside and a little bit more open, it's within that range of normal. We're just trying to avoid the extremes with this, trying to get somewhere into that kind of neutral position. So the wrist hinge is a huge part of this. You'll see some players that have a lot more hinge and wrist set. You'll see some that have a little bit less going back, but you're not going to see players just fully keep the arms locked out. There's always going to be some set of hinging to these wrists, and we're going to talk about how to do this. So the big thing is going to be feeling like we are leveraging this club upwards and outwards a little bit. So we are not feeling like you get in here and shove the hands away and your hands disconnect from your body to get this club way outside. So if you're a player that has an issue with the club rolling open and inside, we are not trying to just shove the hands away to keep it out here. I can keep my hands low and inside, but if I keep my hands low and inside and now all of a sudden I start to add hinge, you can see this club is now going up and out as soon as I start to hinge these wrists and leverage that club a little bit. The club is going to stay up and out versus not hinging the wrist and the club just sinking low and around me or shoving the hands away to cheat it. So kind of feeling the hands in and the club out is going to be the kind of the mantra with this of trying to get into this takeaway position, but the hinge is how you're going to achieve it. So when it comes to the hinging pattern, ideally what I would like to see is the thumbs are kind of helping aid this club up towards your face. You're feeling like the wrists are hinging vertically. You're feeling like you're kind of your trail hand, pointer finger. So for me being righty, I feel like I can almost feel like I'm leveraging this club upwards, kind of pulling this club upwards with the fingers on the underside of this club. But the big issue here that I will see all the time from players is as soon as they start working on hinging the club upwards, they start to cup the lead wrist. So as you start working on hinge, I don't want to see you really aggressively hinging, and now when you are working back, this lead wrist starts to cup, because that's going to open the face, and a lot of times as I see players really aggressively hinge and cup that wrist, that face opens and it usually leads to getting steep with an open face. That's no good either. So you almost have to blend two movements where we are feeling, yes, the club is leveraging upwards. We are feeling like the thumbs are working up towards the face a little bit. We're feeling like these fingers are kind of pulling this club up towards you a little bit. But we also have to keep an eye on the lead wrist. For me being a right-handed player, the left wrist. And I need to feel like that wrist is staying flat or almost slightly bowing as this occurs. And what this is going to do, as I feel like I'm hinging the wrist, but I keep that lead wrist nice and flat as I do it, that is going to get you into a position where that club is going to not open up. So if I, again, just get here and I just really aggressively hinge upwards and get into this position, you can see that club head is, or club face is wide open. That toe is straight up towards the sky. As I continue up, that wrist is cupped. You're going to have major issues from there. But as soon as I start to flatten that lead wrist out, you're going to see that toe goes down a little bit. So you almost have to blend these two movements together of feeling like that club is leveraging upwards and outwards with the hinge, not shoving the hands away, but by getting the club hinging upwards and outwards. But you have to make sure that lead wrist stays nice and flat as you do it. And that is going to be kind of your exaggerated feel, where now when you do this and you start to freeze when that club is closer to waist high or just under waist high, you can see you're in a position where that club head is in line with the hands, toe is slightly down, hands are over the shoelaces, not shoving out and away or kind of not hinging at at all where that club wants to wrap low and around. We're trying to feel like there's just a little bit of hinging upwards as the lead wrist stays nice and flat, and that is going to be how you ultimately get to this position. So when it comes to practicing this and grooving this and getting it into the full swing, ideally what I would like to see is you hit shots where you are pausing at that takeaway spot to make sure you are kind of nailing that checkpoint. Not super concerned with distance or contact with these to start, but I would like to see when you get set up, feel like you hinge the club, let that lead wrist stay flat, go ahead and look back and see, okay, cool, my hands are over my back shoe, that club face is slightly down, the club head is in line with my hands, finish the swing, and then go ahead and reset. So once you get used to that feel of kind of getting the checkpoint down where you get set up, feel the hinge, checkpoint it up to the top, fire, then you can go ahead and start blending this into non-pause reps. So once you are getting used to these non-pause reps, I want you to start extremely slow with these, where when you get set up, I want you to almost be able to talk yourself through this. You're going so slow. I want you to be able to feel that you're hinging the club upwards as the lead wrist stays nice and flat to the top. Go ahead and fire. And then as you get more comfortable, you can start to blend this into faster reps. But you have to take time getting used to being in this position and then gradually build up to going closer to full speed with it. But like I said, the takeaway is one of the places that I see players struggle with the most. There is not one way that you have to do it. There are players that get into extreme positions that make it work, but they are in the minority. Most players are going to get the club somewhere in this vicinity off the start because it's much easier to manage up to the top versus getting the club in a position where you now really have to make compensations to get it up there. So get used to feeling those hands stay low and inside with a little bit of hinge. Just make sure you keep that lead wrist nice and flat as you do it to keep that club face as square as possible.